Hello everyone, welcome. Thank you for joining our diagnostic training session today. If you are watching us on Zoom, if you have any questions throughout, just make sure you find that Q&A button. It's either on the top or the bottom of your screen, depending on what device you have it on. Just find the Q&A button, click on that, it'll open a new window. You can type in your question, hit submit, and I'll get to the questions at the end of the session. If you're watching us live on YouTube, you can utilize the live chat window. It's either next to or below the video, depending on your device once again. If you're watching this after we were live on YouTube, then live chat is not there, so you won't be able to ask a question, but you could leave a comment, thumbs up, and give it a like. So my name is Jason Gabrinas. I'm one of Snap-on's National Diagnostic Technical Trainers, been in the training department the last 7 years, traveling around North America, helping techs and shop owners get the most out of their diagnostic equipment. Before that, it was 2 years as a Snap-on diagnostic sales rep. So I had 30 different Snap-on franchisees that I worked with, as well as the shops that they serviced to help everyone get the most out of their diagnostic needs. Before that, it was 8 years at Subaru. I was a Subaru dealership technician and worked at the shop, and over time I guess became the default diagnostic guy in the shop, right? So I always ended up with the drivability issues, the weird wiring problems, the intermittent problems that always seem to come in. Those always seem to end up their way and find their way into my bay, and that's really where I cut my diagnostic teeth, was trying to figure out all these different weird, strange problems that would come across in my bay. Before that, a bunch of other miscellaneous wrenching jobs. It's been about 25 years underhood experience for me. So our topic at hand is Code-Based Diagnostics Workflow Part 2. Now, if you were with us last time, we walked through the first half of our diagnostic workflow, and we also discussed why it's a good idea to even have a workflow, right? We want to have a good, repeatable process to walk through in order to not miss any steps. All right, so first off, it starts with, well, bringing the customer in, finding out what the customer's problem is, and then putting it in a repair order, of course. And then we bring the car in, and in this case, maybe a check engine light or a drivability problem. So the first thing we wanted to do is do a pre-scan. Right? So we want to check all systems for codes. Now, why do we want to do that? Well, we want to make sure that there aren't any codes in systems that don't have lights associated with them. There could be codes in a module that does not have a warning light. So we want to make sure we check them all for codes, make sure it isn't affecting something else in the vehicle. Then we can also share that information with the customer, give them a full vehicle health report for their vehicle. We can share it using the free Snap-on Cloud service, or we could print it out. From there, once we get the okay to go through a diagnosis, we go through the diagnosis, right? So that's our second step in our workflow. Now, the diagnosis in and of itself would have its own workflow that we'd want to walk through as well, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But that's just a walkthrough and determine what is the actual cause, all the way from gathering information through verifying what the problem is. And then once we've verified what the problem is, then it will be time to repair. So either we replace the part or repair the wiring harness or whatever type of repair we need to have done, we go through and perform the actual repair at that time. Then once that's done, we want to perform some sort of a recalibration or reset, or at least we need to check and see, are there any available resets, relearn procedures for this problem on this vehicle? Could be anything, right? Multiple parts on vehicles nowadays need some sort of a reset, relearn, recalibration involved. You replace a fuel injector on a diesel, oftentimes you have to type in a number. That's coding the injector to the vehicle. Sometimes maybe you replace a throttle body, you need to do a throttle body relearn. Another popular one is 06 and newer GM vehicles. When you replace the oxygen sensor, you need to reset the heater circuit on that vehicle. Otherwise, it will burn out that oxygen sensor heater circuit, usually in the first few hundred miles. So you want to make sure that you check and perform any resets, recalibrations, relearns that need to be done for that repair for that vehicle. And then after that, we'll clear the codes. We'll take it for a road test. And then we want to make sure that all of the readiness monitors are set, because once those readiness monitors are set, then we know we won't have any at least emissions-related codes, because that's what the monitors are there for, to check for that. Then once that's done, we'll go and do a post-scan. Post-scan dovetails or bookends really nicely with our pre-scan. Right? So we want to scan all modules again, make sure there are no codes left over in the vehicle, make sure the vehicle is in better shape than when it got to us. We want to send it back to the customer better than we had it before. And of course, we can share that as well. So last time, as I said, we walked through the diagnosis portion, right? So to catch you up, we went through gathering our information, right? This vehicle had two codes in there. We had a misfire code and an evap code. So we walked through the TSBs first, and lo and behold, we had two TSBs for our P0300 misfire code, and the information in that TSB actually helped us fix that problem with the vehicle. It was a missing clip on a spark plug wire. After that, walked through, switched over because that solved that problem, but we also had that evap code, the P0446. So we walked through, there weren't any TSBs for that. So we also looked up OEM information as to location of the component, also where we would test it, wiring diagrams to see how it was wired, how it worked. Real world repair information, looked at our SureTrack parts graph, right, our top repairs graph to see what have other technicians done in this case. And then looked at the data stream to see, is there any indication that the computer can give us as to what's wrong with the vehicle. And of course, in that point, if you saw the last time we were here, the data stream indicated that there's excessive vacuum in the fuel tank, even though it was commanding the vent valve to be open. So that shouldn't happen, because we shouldn't be able to build vacuum in a fuel tank with the vent valve open. So that led us to believe, well, maybe it is that vent valve. So next thing we did is use a functional test. Use a functional test and our senses to see, turn it on and off, does it click, does it open and close. In this case, we functionally tested it and it did not functionally work. So it was not opening or closing, couldn't hear it, couldn't feel it, seemed like it's not working. But in that case, could it be a circuit problem or could it be a component problem? It could be either. So to verify and do a final verification, we went through and performed a component test on the component itself. So we tested the solenoid and check and see, make sure the circuit was okay. Checked on the voltage feed line, we had voltage there. When it is open, it should have voltage on both sides. When it was set to open, it did not have voltage on both pins. So that indicated the voltage was not getting through the circuit. So it indicated maybe an open inside the solenoid. So we got to that point where we verified the failure. Now our diagnosis is complete, and that's where we left off last time. Now we need to go on with our repair. So we need to order the correct part. Sometimes that can be easier than others depending on how we're ordering our part. If we're calling up, sometimes things can be lost in translation over the phone and so on. So we want to have a nice, accurate way of ordering the proper part. And then replace per the OEM instructions, however that happens to be. In this case, I think it's a bracket and a bolt, so that should be fairly straightforward. And then, of course, once the repair is complete, though, we want to verify the repair. We want to test the component to make sure there isn't sort of an anomaly out of the box, right? Have you ever gotten a brand new part in a box that didn't work? I think that's probably happened to most of us at one point or another, right? So we want to test the component, verify that it does work, and of course we can also use the functional test to verify that the computer is able to control the circuit and turn it on and off. Then once we've gone and verified that our fix is done, then we'll clear all our codes. And then we want to find and perform any resets, relearns, or calibrations. Now there could be dozens of resets, relearns, functional tests on a vehicle that we might need to sort through. We have a quick, easy way to walk through that we'll talk about. Then we want to walk through our road test and make sure we set our readiness monitors on the vehicle. And then after that, we can perform that post-scan to make sure there are no codes left over, and also make sure that we share that information with the customer so that they have a record of that the repair was completed. So with that, brings us to our live walkthrough. Just double check and taking a quick glance here. I don't see any questions coming up in Zoom, so if you're watching in Zoom, just make sure if you do have questions, click on that Q&A and type in your question. Also live on YouTube, I don't see any chats there, so just make sure you're using that live chat if you do have any questions. Moving along to our scan tool, and actually we want to go to our repair order first, right? Because we have finished our diagnosis with our scan tool. So now we'll pull up our repair order, Joe Johnson's Tahoe here. And you'll notice on the bottom of my repair order here in Shop Key Manager, we have multiple links to multiple parts houses. And as I said before, if you call up on the phone, things can be lost in translation. This way we can integrate with parts catalogs, online parts catalogs, which open in a new window. There we go. So it integrates with our online parts catalog, so we can select parts from online. We can look at pictures and make sure we get the right part. All right, so that's under fuel and emissions is my evap. I just went to CarQuest. I got a CarQuest down the street here. We'll go to evap control components right here. It's going to pull the information. Notice that it passed the vehicle information through to my parts supplier as well. So we have the vapor canister up here. We have the canister vent solenoid assembly. And then we have the vent valve itself down here. So we can look. If we see we have a part number here. We have a BWD part. We can click on that. And that opens in a new window. There we go. We can see we have a solenoid. We have, it looks like a hard line that goes into a corrugated line there, loops around a couple times, and we have a filter at the end. So that is all a complete assembly there, as well as the hard line for, looks like it goes to the canister. All right, so we got that nylon hard line with the quick connect fitting. Okay, and then we have a dormant part as well, same deal. We have, looks like the solenoid there, and then we have the corrugated line that goes up to the filter, and then we have that hard nylon line that goes out to the canister. Right, go there, and we also have the vapor canister vent valve here as well. So that is just the valve by itself. It looks like we have one bolt to mount it to the bracket. One of the lines goes here, the other line goes there, and then we have our connector here. So either way we could do this. I know dealing with the hard nylon lines, sometimes those can be a challenge to get on and off, especially since they become brittle over time. And it looks like we have these part suppliers that give us the entire thing. So let's go in here and we'll just order this that has the entire unit there, this dormant part. All right, so all I have to do is go over here, check it off, say that's the one I want, and then I'll hit transfer. It brings it over into my repair order, marks it up accordingly based on my parts markup matrix, and just shows us how much we're charging for the part. Now, if I wanted to check labor as well, we can go in there. I can go up into my labor, and we could add in labor manually, or we can go into our estimator here, which is integrated with it. Connects to the internet, opens in a new window over here. So I need to bring that a little bit bigger. And then, of course, we'll do the vent valve. And AC, no, vent solenoid. Yes, vent solenoid. That's what we want. There we go. All right, so that is under engine. And evap, canister purge, canister filter. And there we go, vent solenoid. There we go. And 8/10. All right, looks like 8/10, so I can add that as well. Add that over there. So there's my labor, there's my parts, there's my pre-scan from last time too. We added a link to the pre-scan, and then there's the customer complaint up there. So all of that is centrally located, so I have a good record of that. All right, so now that I have the part ordered, I can go into my parts ordering and actually order it from here. Since I have it in a demonstration mode, I can't actually order the part, but I could just hit order parts. I go to check pricing, and it'll send an order, purchase order to the parts house, and then the parts house will be able to deliver it to me there. So it's all integrated. All right, so I'll close out of that. Now let's say the part has arrived. We've installed it. Now we need to check it. Verify that we don't have this problem anymore. So we could go in here and we'll go into our engine. And we will go into our functional tests because that's how we can turn it on and off, right? So we'll go into functional tests. Now that is a output control. Turning this on and off as an output control. And we see here's a full list of output controls on this vehicle. And there are dozens of different output controls. If you remember last time, earlier on, when we walked through intelligent diagnostics, we had it filtered down to just 4 of these, right? Only the ones related to this problem. So in this case, we have to go through the full list because we don't have any codes anymore because we cleared them. But we'll go in evap vent solenoid there. And it says it won't function correctly if the evap monitor is running, which it's not. So we'll go in here. It's going to load from the vehicle. And then we can set it to venting and not venting. And of course, I'm using this on a wirelessly connected tool, so I can be underneath the vehicle. It's over by the spare tire in the rear. And I can put my hand on it. I can listen. Is it clicking when I go back and forth and touch the touchscreen? Click it back and forth, venting and not venting. Is it clicking? So let's say, in our hypothetical scenario we're walking through right now, I go from venting to not venting, and sure enough, it is clicking. I can hear it, I can feel it, I know it's clicking. Now that means that I know the circuit between the solenoid and the PCM is working. And as far as we know, the valve is okay, the solenoid is okay, but I still want to verify and test to make sure that it has the correct voltages in and out. We could have a component that maybe still has some high resistance in there or some other problem somewhere else. We want to verify that my signals are correct. So I'll leave this open because I want to be able to cycle it back and forth, right? But I'll go back to my home screen and pull up my guided component test meter. That's how we were going to directly test the component. So it pulls up my vehicle, and then it pulls up my vehicle systems that I can test. So we'll go into engine because that's where the evap system is. And then we'll go to evap system here. And we'll look at our vent solenoid tests. Now on the guided component test, if you're not familiar with those, there are over 5 million available guided component tests in here, cover 28 different makes, all the way back to 1981. So carburetors, fuel injection, HVAC systems, body electrical systems, ADAS systems are in here as well. So there's a wealth of information in here, and we can test the component directly, and it does most of the work for us. Tells us what we're supposed to see, sets up. So we'll go into a DC voltage test because I want to check the voltage on this solenoid. So it tells us where to connect our leads. So we have a yellow lead and a black lead. It's color-coded right on the top of the tool. So yellow will go to vent control and black will go to known good ground. We can also check voltage on the ignition positive as well. So key on engine running, the PCM de-energizes to allow the purge. It is normally open. When it's de-energized, I should see 12 volts on both A and B terminals when it's de-energized. During the monitor, it energizes the solenoid, allowing vacuum and pressure to build in the tank, so that would be closed. So I should see 1/10 of a volt or less on the control side when it's closed. So when it's open, I should see 12 volts on both sides or battery voltage. When it's closed, I should see 1/10 of a volt on the control side, but still battery voltage on the positive side. So here's my vent solenoid here, A and B. So we'll back probe at A first, we'll say. So I should see ignition positive at A. So we'll hit view meter. It opens up my meter, and it selects a graphing meter in this case. Gives us a voltage, sets the voltage automatically, sets the time base automatically. So all we really need to do is connect and see what we have for a signal. So here we go, 12 volts, looks good. Now let's say it's de-energized. So it should see 12 volts on both sides when it's de-energized. So I'll disconnect, and then I'll plug into the other side, and I see 12 volts. Last time, when we tested this before we made the repair, we did not see 12 volts on the control side no matter what the situation was. So that indicated that voltage was not making it through the solenoid. Now in this case, we see voltage on both sides. That indicates, well, voltage is making it through. So disconnect from the control side, go to the power side, connect in there, 12 volts on both sides. Disconnect, connect, and we can see it on both. Then we can go in and we can set it to close, which allows vacuum. Now I want to be able to see the result while also controlling it. So I want to have two screens at the same time. So I'll simply go to the top of the screen, click meter, makes it full screen. Meter one more time, turns it into a window. I now have a separate window with my results. Remember, I am back probed at the solenoid itself. Go back to the home screen. Go to scanner. My guided component test is still working. Or my functional test. My functional test is still running. I can then pull this up. Pull up my scope. Move it to that side. Notice how it snaps to the right. Select the left side window. So I have my functional test over here and I have my result over here. So if I were to go to the control side now, we'll probe in the control side. I should see 12 volts when it's venting. And then when I set it to not venting, it should click. And then it should go down to 1/10 of a volt or less, which it is. Right? So that indicates that everything's working the way it should. My voltage ranges are where they need to be. Going in, going out. When it's controlled, when it's not controlled. Set to venting, goes back. Set it to not venting, goes back down. Right? So I should be able to see the result of my functional test by looking with the guided component test. All right, so that is our confirmation. So now we've confirmed that the problem is fixed. It's working the way it should. So now we don't need the guided component test anymore. We already tested that, so we'll disconnect that. We don't need the functional test anymore because we checked that. So we'll exit out, back up a few menus till we get to the top of the vehicle. Now, as I said, we want to clear the codes after we've confirmed this, right? So we can go into clear all codes. It's going to clear all the codes for us. It's doing that in the background now. There really isn't a dialog box for that. It's not showing us anything going on. We just see the little yeah, that's the spinning thing, the spinning clock indicator, right? That's the indicator there. So it said it went through 33 different systems, codes cleared on all of them. Okay, that's the result we wanted. We'll hit OK. And now that I'm clear, I want to see, are there any resets or relearns related to this problem? Now, if you have an intelligent diagnostics tool, so the Zeus, the Apollos, or the Triton, you have a quick link to all service resets and relearns on the vehicle. So that is a quick way to just go in and glance, did I do any of these things, so I can reset. If you have a non-intelligent diagnostic tool, you still have all the functional resets available. You just have to go into the individual module to find them. So in this case, service resets and relearns, there's 35 of them on this vehicle. And under the engine, and it looks like we have a replace evap vent solenoid. So if I replace the evap vent solenoid, I have a test for this. So you can go in here. Gives us indication of top repairs based on 1.3 billion real repair orders. Also gives us a link to any applicable TSB's bulletins, recalls, or campaigns. In this case, there are none applicable, which is fine. And then we have functional resets and calibrations. If I click on that, what it does is it looks inside the computer and sees, are there any resets, relearns, calibrations related to this repair? In this case, we come back with one, and that's fine. That's the one we're going to do. Sometimes it could be 3, 4, 5, 6 different resets, relearns, calibrations, depending on what we're working on. I know I looked up a radar for a Camry, and it comes back with 5 or 6 of them. All right, so it gives us, depending on what we're working on. So in this case, it gives us an evap service bay test. Now, what is this going to do for us? Well, if we go in here, it says, use this procedure to run the onboard evap diagnostic. To ensure accurate test results, refer to specific vehicle-specific service information for instructions. If the monitor flag is complete, clear the codes to reset the monitor. We just cleared the codes. That'll reset the monitor. Now, why do I want to do this? What is the advantage of doing this here in the bay versus driving the vehicle? So let's exit out and get a little bit more information on my service bay test. I have a quick link to repair information here. It'll bring my vehicle through. It'll log me in if you have optional shop key or Mitchell, and you have it on this tool. You could otherwise look up repair information in your browser, of course. Go in here, use this vehicle. It does a pre-search for my evap emissions canister vent solenoid. Now I want to look up the evap service bay test, so I'll just clear that out and look up service bay tests. And in this case, I want to look up a keyword search because that looks through all the articles for me. And here is my inspection and maintenance system set procedures. That's what I want to see. Pull that up. It says, first ensure the vehicle meets the conditions for a cold start listed above. So we'll go up here and look for cold start. So the ignition voltage needs to be between 11 and 18 volts. The barometric pressure is more than 75 kilopascals. The engine coolant temperature, the intake air temperature, and the ambient air temperature all need to be between 39 and 86 degrees Fahrenheit. And then the difference between intake air temperature and coolant temperature needs to be less than or equal to 10.8 degrees Fahrenheit. Fuel level needs between 15 and 85%, just like on our evap monitor. First thing it talks about is the evap. So the evap system status indicator should display yes if it's complete, which it's not because we cleared it. If the evap system status indicator displays no, perform the evap service bay test if applicable, which in this case it is. If the evap service bay test is not available, it may take up to 6 drive cycles with up to 17 hours between drive cycles for the evap system status indicator to transition to yes. So that sounds to me like almost a week of driving the vehicle because it's up to 6 drive cycles, and there has to be 17 hours between drive cycles, so that's more than half a day. So let's call it just every day we got to drive this thing for a drive cycle. And who has time for that, right? So having the evap service bay test will save us from having to do that. It's going to force the monitor for us. Then it walks through the rest of the drive cycle. So for the heater test, here's how to do that. We want to turn off accessories, start and idle the engine, etc., etc. It gives us multiple parameters for what we need to do in order to set all the monitors on the vehicle. But we're going to quick set that evap monitor. So we'll go back over to scanner here, just flip right over, and we'll go into our evap service bay test again. We see that there is definitely an advantage to doing this. And there's multiple vehicles that have this type of force to monitor. If you were here at the very beginning, you saw we had this on a Toyota to be able to force the pump. All right, so fuel level must be 15 and 85%. Continue. Turn the ignition off, wait 10 seconds, then turn the ignition on, and do not start the engine. Now, it's very important. It seems like something very, not like it's not a big deal, right? Seems pretty innocuous. Turn the ignition off and wait 10 seconds. There are certain things that need to be done, especially when it comes to these pre-scripted tests like this, where you need to follow every step to the T, otherwise the test may fail. And I know sometimes this can be a challenge on this particular test if you don't have all the parameters just right. So you just want to make sure that you follow all the steps listed on the screen. So turn the ignition off, wait 10 seconds, turn the ignition on. We've done that, let's say. We'll hit continue. Collects the data for us. Transmission and park are neutral. Apply parking brake. Start the engine. Raise and hold between 1800 to 2200 for the duration of the engine running portion of the test. So there's an engine running and an engine idle, and then there's also an engine off. So if we continue, goes in here, gives us data stream inside the scripted test. Now this is very handy for this test in particular, because if we look at this, it gives us our status as to what's going on in the test. So right now it's waiting for purge enable. And this is as far as we're going to be able to go in the simulation, but you would just watch on the upper part of the screen here, waiting for purge enable, it says. You watch up here, and it will give you specific instructions on how to proceed through each part of the test. Also handy is it gives us why, if the test canceled, why it aborted. So in this case, none. What the result of the test is no test result, or it has a pass or a fail. And then if there is a reason the test is being inhibited. So that'll give you an indication as to what the problem may be, as to why it's not proceeding. Right? So there's some useful PIDs right there on top. And as I said, it gives us the data through. So let's say we walk through all the individual steps on this test, force the monitor to run, and now that's complete. So I'll exit out. Yep. And then I'll hit back, and then back again. Brings me to the top of the vehicle. All right, so we verified the problem, or verified the repair, cleared the codes, did our reset and relearn for it. Now we want to take it on a road test, following those instructions we saw before. Here's how to go through and set all your monitors. Then, when we're done, we bring it back in, and we want to do that final step of the code scan. We want to do a post scan on the vehicle, so we'll go up to code scan there, and label it as a post scan, as I said. We'll go through. It's going to check all the systems for codes. It's going to come back and have no codes left. I see all green circles. If I scroll all the way down to the bottom, you can see it also checks my OBD2 codes, and it also checks my readiness monitors. All green, all clear. You'll also notice that the screen turned gray. That indicated that it saved this for me automatically. Now, it saved it in two places. It saved it to the tool, and it saved it automatically to the Snapon Cloud as well. So if I wanted to view it on the tool, I can come down here on the Windows-based tools. We have the file folder down here. On the non-Windows-based tools, we have our previous vehicles and data where we can access that. There's our vehicle system report here. Double click, and then we see post-scan report, shop information, code scan results. Could print it from here, or we could share it with our customer, or paste the link to our repair order. So that's what we're going to do now. We'll go to the Snapon Cloud here. As I said, this is free, integrated with the tool. That's the one from last time. So we'll go up here. There is my vehicle system report I just produced, date and time stamp. Click on it. You'll see that it labels it as a post scan down here, so I know it's a post scan. I could click on it. It's going to open in a new window. Once again, this works in anything with a web browser: phone, tablet, laptop, desktop, PC, scan tool. All right, so systems with codes, systems without codes. I could print this from my browser, or I could share a link. If I click on the link, I have three options. If I have this open on my cell phone, I will be able to send it as a text message. That's what SMS is. If I have it on a machine that has a built-in email client like Outlook, I can click on that. I'll be able to send it via email. It'll compose a message for me and paste that link in the email. Or I can copy it to the clipboard, which I'm going to do now, and then we can paste it anywhere else. So I copied it to the clipboard. So now I can go back to my shop management. I can add another note. If I go up to my notes, I can call it my post scan, and then I can paste it. And now I have a link to that saved to the repair order as well. All right, so there's my customer complaint. There is my pre-scan. There is my part, there's my labor, and then there's my post scan right there. So everything's ready. I could go out and invoice this to my customer when I get to that point. So at this point, we're done. We've completed our walkthrough of the complete code to completion. This was the second half, of course, the verification step. So let's talk about next week. Next week, please join us. This will be on Zoom only for the rest of the year. This is our last live stream to YouTube because we now have our 10 classes worth of content up there. So next week, please join us on Zoom if you wish to catch up on the approach to intermittent problems. All right, so we're going to talk through a few different techniques that we can use using our scan tool in order to check through either intermittent problems or just maybe hard to diagnose problems that we don't necessarily have a tried and true way to do. So we'll talk about freeze frame and how we would utilize that. We'll talk about fuel trims and how we would use those. What are fuel trims? How do they work? And how do we use the numbers of our fuel trims, our percentages, in order to see where a problem may be. Also talk about how we would diagnose catalyst efficiency just by using scan data. That's kind of a nice, useful little takeaway. And then talk about intermittent body problems. We talk about intermittent engine problems all the time and drivability problems all the time, but we don't talk about body problems all that often. And we can use our scan tools in order to diagnose an intermittent body problem by splitting the circuit using functional tests and data interpretation. So we'll talk through all of that. Same time, same place next week, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, if you want to join me on Zoom. Also, if you're watching on YouTube and you enjoyed the content, please make sure you subscribe and turn on that little bell so you can get a notification next time we go live. And also, leave a thumbs up and or a comment if you wish. Now let's get to questions. I am not currently seeing any right now on Zoom. I'm going to check over on YouTube here in a second. And oh, by the way, stay tuned for another couple minutes because we're going to announce a little contest that we have going on too, which is pretty great. Looks over on YouTube. Looks like we're clear there. So let's talk about Al. Al does classes as well. Al McCaskey, my partner in training here, I guess we could say. He does introduction to scan tool classes. So if you're new to any of our scan tools, or if you have a buddy who is, or if you just want to learn a little bit more about the tool you have and you've invested in, definitely a good class to take. So you can go to snapon.com/NOT or OT. Actually, I haven't had a chance to update this slide. We just updated the website yesterday. So walks through the Wi-Fi setup, walks through setting up your free Snap-on cloud account as well. So it is tool specific. So Mondays, it's Apollo D9, 5 and 8 p.m. Central Time. Wednesdays, Zeus, 5 and 8 p.m. Central Time. And Triton, Thursdays at 5 and 8 p.m. Central Time. Also, the Apollo is about an hour worth of material. The Zeus is about an hour and 45 minutes, as well as the Triton, because we also walk through guided component testing and ignition testing on the Zeus as well. So with that, I did promise. There is one question. Hold on. Chris says, I used my Snap-on MT2500 today. That is great. You just used that red brick. 30 years old. It might not be 30 years old, but we released it 30 years ago. That's crazy how far we have come. We have come a long way with the intelligent diagnostics. Definitely appreciate that, Chris. That's pretty cool. And they still work to this day. Put some fresh batteries in it. And could be pretty useful for some vehicles. Right? So I did promise we're announcing a contest. Pretty sure they've already announced this elsewhere. But if you haven't heard, you, as a Snap-on scan tool owner, if you are a Snap-on scan tool owner, you have a chance to win a piece of the Snap-on history. I'm sorry that red brick is not eligible, but we are giving away 10 100th year intelligent diagnostic workstations to our Snap-on Diagnostics customers. How do you win? It's probably the easiest contest in the world to enter, at least in my mind. Just make sure your scan tool is up to date. Make sure if you have a Snap-on scan tool that it says 20.4 on that screen. Make sure it is updated to the current version of software, which should be 20.4. Came out in October. If you're not updated, definitely a good time to have that conversation with your franchisee. You have until the end of the year, which is, hey, it's the end of the month now too, right? Because it's December 1st today as we're doing this. So make sure your tool is updated by December 31st at 11:59 and 59 seconds, and then you'll automatically be entered to win. All eligible tools with 20.4 on them at that time are entered in the drawing to win. Pretty cool. We're giving away 10 of them, like I said, across North America, 1 per region. We have 10 regions in North America, so that does include Canada, because Canada is one of our regions. So US and Canada, it is available. So go to snapon.com/diagnostics/win in order to read up the details and the rules for the contest. But like I said, pretty straightforward. Have a Snap-on scan tool on 20.4 by the end of December, and you're entered to win. 1 in every region. So with that, I do not see any additional questions or comments. So I appreciate everyone attending today. Hopefully we'll see you next week for introduction to intermittent problems. And one more question just popped up. Wally, thank you very much. I definitely appreciate your attendance. Everybody, make sure you stay safe this week. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your upcoming weekend. Hopefully we'll see you next week. And definitely take care.